a nice compilation of all the hot takes you've had over the years and spread it around to justify your murder. You don't get it, do you? We are all Charlie Kirk.
This is just really effective propaganda, and always has been. You can sit on one side of the aisle, it's like, she's the female Tim Pool. That's exactly what she is.
A few days ago, just stream of consciousness posting about it, with run-on sentences and everything. 4 days later, I have a clearer head, but I still feel the exact same way. So we are going to talk about what happened, we're going to talk about the aftermath, and then we're gonna get a little personal, because frankly, I don't see the country the same anymore, and I know a lot of you feel the exact same way.
To have that mindset, by the way, and to go into this like that, you'd have to have already been pretty far on the right, to be completely honest with you. Because literally every single day, there is mass violence that takes place in the United States, including the shooting and killing of children in schools from mass shootings and killers. This is constantly happening. The US is a very, very violent country. And also the actions of the United States overseas are consistently doing political violence, where people are being shot and killed and murdered. Again, with the weapons that are created in the United States and sold by the US military-industrial complex. Stuff which, again, this is not something where you should just suddenly be shocked. Like, I cannot believe that something like this actually occurred. And now that it has occurred, the country will never be the same because people didn't treat this with the respect they should have. Again, when it comes to deal with the man who espoused hate his entire life, where a man said that, again, violent gun deaths are sometimes necessary for the Second Amendment. That included the violent gun deaths of children. For a man who vilified every marginalized community that he hated, whether they be black people, gay people, trans people, you name it, there wasn't really a single, point that a person like Charlie Kirk, a white supremacist, and don't worry, I brought the receipts, we can actually listen to his own words instead of having this deification or revisionist history come through, unless that was something that you, again, were on board with, or something that you thought was moderate, something that you thought was completely acceptable, then maybe then you'd be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is shocking to me. I cannot believe this happened.
So we're going to talk about it after we talk about everything else. Charlie Kirk was not a healthcare CEO, he was not a powerful politician, and let me be 100% clear, I'm not saying this to say that it's okay when those people are murdered. My point is that those are positions of power that most people cannot relate to. Like, the average person is just so far removed from that world. But I think what happened to Charlie is hitting differently because, like I said on Twitter, he was just a f***ing guy. He was a f***ing podcaster. He was a guy who talked about politics. He was a guy who had conservative beliefs. Not everyone knows a billionaire CEO or a powerful politician, but they do know somebody with conservative beliefs. They know somebody who holds...
By the way, conservative beliefs, or at least what I was told that they're supposed to be, is you believe in small government, in lowering taxes, that kind of stuff, allowing for the economy to operate in the free market so that the trickle-up economics can occur, those kind of things. Not saying that, black women don't have the brain processing power to achieve the positions that they have, and as such, they're stealing it from more qualified white. That's pretty extreme, I would say. A lot of his positions seem to be pretty extreme, but hey, if you normalize them, if you do this revisionist history, or say that he was simply a conservative podcaster, a moderate, then, again, everything's been reset, right? If those are moderate positions, then what's to the right of Charlie Kirk?
Some or many of Charlie Kirk's opinions. Because despite what people in their little bubble believe, his core ideology and what he believed is the same shit like your conservative boomer uncle on Facebook posts. You can only disagree with this if you are unfamiliar with Charlie Kirk, or you are unfamiliar with the many different branches and different ideologies of the right wing. Now, don't get me wrong, Charlie Kirk had many bad takes over the years. Like, for example, the two most popular quotes I see people posting are the one where he advocated for stoning gays and black women are too stupid to be pilots. But guess what? Both those things, the two most popular quotes people are posting to justify this guy being murdered, are out of context. But idiots like Stephen...
Wow, so you're not even going to show them? Why not be honest? Why not show, because I can play them. Why don't we play Charlie Kirk's own words so people can hear? He wasn't talking about black women pilots for the one that's being pointed out for that. He was talking about Ketanji Brown Jackson, and he was saying that, again, these are women who are in positions they got simply because they happened to be black and they didn't have the brain processing power to achieve the goals, to achieve the positions that they got, and they stole it from more qualified white people as a result. When it came to black pilots, he was talking about how he would have to second guess whether or not he was going to fly on a plane if the pilot turned out to be black, because again, DEI, were they qualified to fly? We will never know. We don't even know what the requirements are for pilots. I mean, at the end of the day, they could be qualified, they could be unqualified. And when it came to the Charlie Kirk talking about God's perfect law in relation to stoning, he used that as a gotcha He used that as a gotcha against, again, Miss Rachel, who is advocating for people to stop murdering and massacring children and using quotes from the Bible to try and appeal to people's humanity through their supposed Christianity. And to be like, hey, by the way, we should stop dropping bombs on kids in Gaza. I can't believe that's a controversial thing, but I need to keep saying it. And for some reason, people aren't listening to me. So here's some quotes from the Bible for all you Christians. Maybe you'll listen to me. And then his gotcha for that was like, well, I mean, come on. If we're going to talk about God's perfect law, according to God's perfect law, you're supposed to stone gay people to death. Haha. So, gotcha.
King ran with it, then later had to apologize for spreading misinformation about a dead man. These people will build a straw man of you in their minds. They get so fucking mad about it that they celebrate the real you dying. Horrifying. But more importantly, even if everything was in context, who cares? Oh, he said this. Oh, he said this. I don't care. There are many things he said that I disagree with. There are many things he said that I think are bad. Who cares? It is just a fact that nothing he said warranted his life being taken away. This is
No one's on the other side of that. You were just talking about straw men. That is a literal straw man argument. Being like, it doesn't matter if you think he was an extremist. It doesn't matter if you didn't agree with the things he said. He should not have been shot and murdered for his speech. Yeah, everyone agreed with you. Everyone was saying that. I know you'll be able, because she doesn't want to pull up, the actual quotes of Charlie Kirk, but she is going to pull up quotes from a whole bunch of other so-called leftists who were celebrating his death and talking about all the things that he said. That's one thing that she loves doing, right? The propaganda in the other direction is going to be very strong and very intense and get you very, very angry and mad. But why not be honest about it? Because again, the overwhelming amount of not only politicians, but pundits, whether they be liberal, progressive, or leftists, were all saying he should not have been killed. He should not have been executed. I disagree with that. I condemn that even. I'll go as far as saying that. Right. But that doesn't mean we should do a rehabilitation of his image or lie about the things that he said. We shouldn't do a revisionist history of that. That's the problem that everyone has with what's going on. Or people just get fired for saying things like Charlie Kirk was divisive or playing a Charlie Kirk quote. Here's the thing that he said. Should people be fired for that?
America. We have freedom of speech here. Unless you criticize a certain country, but for the most part, we have freedom of speech here. So after detaining not just one wrong guy, but two wrong guys, the FBI finally got the shooter. Only because his own father turned him in. I guess they were just too fucking busy not releasing the Epstein files to catch a political assassin. It was this ass demon, Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, another irony-poisoned Reddit shooter who wrote a bunch of memes on the bullets, including "Hey fascist catch" and
"Notices bulges, capital OWO."
You should have added the second part. It's "Hey fascist catch," and then the code for Helldivers 2 to drop and detonate a bomb. It's kind of important. If you just leave it on its own, it does sound like, again, you can start painting that narrative that he was, in fact, some kind of Antifa super soldier.
What's this question mark?
I fucking hate it here. A lot of people were saying that the shooter was a groiper, which is a far-right fan of the streamer Nick Fuentes, and I have no fucking idea where that came from. I'm gonna be so honest, I have seen no actual proof of this, and it doesn't make
Came from the fact that Nick Fuentes and his community have been very outspoken and critical of Charlie Kirk, that Nick Fuentes frequently was actually telling people to troll Charlie Kirk, including his own fans. The fact that Nick Fuentes has multiple different quotes where he said he was coming after Charlie Kirk. "I'm coming at you like a missile," he actually said. So yeah, that was something to point towards. But guess what? Once more evidence comes in, if you happen to be an honest person, you'll start to recognize, well, yeah, even though he did pose as what looks like a Pepe meme, but it could also be a different meme, and that isn't exactly the same thing as the Groiper Pepes. That's the skinny Pepe. That's a different... Well, even though the song that he played, Bella Ciao, does appear on the Groiper playlist, that's another thing that you could point towards. It turns out, as the evidence has come out, and Glenn Klippenstein has, leaked the conversations between the shooter and the shooter's friends, it doesn't hold up. And as such, yeah, you then can just reflect upon the reality of the world and be honest about it. And not go in the opposite direction. Not be like, hey, by the way, he did write on one of his bullets, "Hey fascist," so I hate it here. And it's like, but that's not all he wrote, was it? It wasn't just "Hey fascist." You're doing the thing. You're doing that thing where you're being slightly dishonest and just throwing crumbs out there. Again, you don't have to actually go as far as getting your audience to be really mad at, say, Antifa or the left, but as long as you put a couple little crumbs, they can put the pieces together.
Sense because someone further right than Charlie Kirk wouldn't call Charlie Kirk a fascist, and they wouldn't say he was hateful. Their proof is that the shooter once dressed up like the Slav Squat meme from 2012, And they also found a separate meme of Pepe the Frog dressed like the Slav squat meme. Therefore, the shooter is a groiper. That is like seeing a photo of the shooter dressed like a clown, and then seeing this image of Pepe the Frog dressed like a clown, and then being like, groiper confirmed. What is the connection? The shooter didn't even post the Pepe image. Like, where did the Pepe even come from? Just a bunch of liberal boomers not understanding memes. The other thing I saw was the shooter had Republican parents, and therefore the shooter must be Republican, which is just funny because we all see what these people say about their Republican parents every Thanksgiving. But I guess we'll see. It's September 14th when I am recording this, so maybe more things will come out. Editor Shoe here, more things came out. Definitely not a groiper. At the end of the day, he could have every single one of my...
Yeah, but more things came out, and it reveals that it was actually mostly apolitical. That again, everyone in both directions who's trying to paint this as either a leftist or a groiper was kind of wrong. And that, like, in terms of the actual information that we have right now, and you know, the leaked Discord messages, the shooter did admit in the Discord to having done, you know, the killing, and then the rest of the Discord, rather than being like, oh, great job, Antifa super soldiers activate, were very, very upset about it. They were sad. They asked for a prayer for Charlie Kirk. Those same people said that the shooter was mostly apolitical. They were very into video games, especially Helldivers 2, which is the reference that you just left out, by the way. You can't just throw crumbs out there and be like, yeah, people really lost their minds and they said this was a groiper, and then I don't really see it, and then here's the evidence that proves that it's not a groiper. And by the way, the person did say, hey, fascist, so we'll just leave that out there. But it's like, hey, fascist what? What's the reference? You were making fun of liberal boomers who don't understand the internet, and you're doing the liberal boomer who doesn't understand the internet by not acknowledging that that was actually a Helldivers 2 meme. It's pretty dishonest.
Or your opinions, it ultimately doesn't matter. One person may have pulled the trigger, but then we saw the reaction of many.
We think that Charlie Kirk just got shot in the neck. Hey, ooh, ah.
I'm not saying she deserved it, but I'm saying God's timing is always right.
Also, Shoe, like you said earlier, who cares? There's going to be people on any side of the political spectrum who are going to celebrate things or not celebrate things. What does this have to do with anything? If you're just like, hey, by the way, you know, Charlie Kirk, he may have said bad things. He may have not said bad things. I'm not going to show you any of the things he said. I'm just going to let you, again, try to assume for yourself what he said. But whether or not you agreed with him, you can agree that he was conservative. But I am going to show you the footage that I've compiled of selected people whose political ideology is going to be unclear, but, you know, you can pretty much make the connections for yourself. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to compile it together so you can get very, very angry at a time where it's very politically charged. Every single one of you who's watching me right now can get furious at all of these, I don't know what they are, but all of these types, right? They were the ones who celebrated it. They were the ones who want to tell you that Charlie Kirk wasn't a good person. They are the, like... I think it's a good time. Rebecca Watson, who's a lot more honest, actually put together just a compilation of the things that Charlie Kirk said in context with on the left, can describe exactly why people are referring to the things he said in the way they are.
Absolutely I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse. Were these blacks trying to go rob her happening all the time in urban America? Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Black crime is a major issue in our country. Why are you pushing criminal justice reform exactly? Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, the Southern...
What? ShoeOnHead lied? That wasn't the black pilot quote. Oh, wild. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, in context, it sounds really fucking bad, because it is. It's extremely racist. He was very, very racist. That's just, like, who he was. Why try and completely change his own messaging? Why try and do that? Unless your goal was to make what he said more moderate, to make it normal, to normalize it. If you can normalize extremist viewpoints, you know, like black women don't have the brain processing power to be able to achieve high levels of positions, and they're stealing those positions from more qualified white people. Well, if we normalize that view, then it's not just extremists, not just Nazis, not just white supremacists, not just fascists, not just Ku Klux Klan members, not neo-reactionaries, not all those types, those alt-righters, the groipers, if you will, saying that kind of stuff. It's a moderate position that most normal Republicans should hold. And at that point, holy shit, If this is where the current direction of the Republican Party is headed, if this is what is supposed to be considered normal, that's horrifying. Because, yeah, these are extremist positions, and they should be always seen as extremist, racist positions.
The southern border is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white agenda. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge.
America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever.
Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. In Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Can we get that picture up, Ryan, of that Marvel's Avenger team? Now, I don't know who the person is on the left. Is the person on the left that came and did the interview with Joe? The TikTok? Your government is being run by freaks. It's like immediately I have like a flashback to a country where weren't able to do Bud Light commercials. What does being trans even mean? Is that even a real thing? It means you need therapy. We must ban trans-affirming care the entire country. I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. On young men, the lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth and she would, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live. Would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm saying I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil. But what happened? Something changed. I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled Alzheimer's, corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and or given the death penalty for his crimes against America. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I can't see a single instance of Israel going out of its way to kill civilians.
You don't see a single instance of what?
Israel going out of its way to kill civilians. I see Israel going out of its way.
So you don't believe what they've done is genocide?
No, of course not.
Again, you can see the rest of this on Rebecca Watson's Skeptic channel.
Psychopathic with their full name and face because they live under the pathetic delusion of being on the right side of history needs to end. They will blame you for your death because words are violence. Words are violence, so them killing you is just self-defense. That's why they're using Kyle Rittenhouse as some kind of gotcha. Oh, if you don't condone political violence, why do you support Kyle Rittenhouse? They fundamentally don't see the difference between killing someone over speech and killing someone over self-defense, because these are the same things to them. Also, I'm going to be the one to point it out, because of course I am. I saw nobody else do it. Why are most of them women? Most of the people celebrating are women. Like, it's a good, like, 80-20.
It's the ones that you're highlighting. Again, we don't have any actual data here. This is all just based on what your experience has been on the internet. Like, I see nonstop quotes, nonstop TikTok videos, nonstop. I think it might have a little bit to do with your algorithm, right? If you happen to be in a very right-wing algorithm, if you have to be surrounded by people who are on the far right, yeah, I'm guessing for the last couple weeks, you would have had a nonstop amount of posting from a lot of different accounts who are consistently trying to put in your face, wow, can you believe that they said this? Wow, can you believe that they did this? Wow, can you believe that they're celebrating this? Wow, they have no respect for this man.
20 ratio all over the internet. What is going on, ladies? Basically, the whole country is shook because last year they realized how many people would celebrate the murder of a president, and this year they realized how many people would celebrate the murder of them. At the end of the day, this is all the inevitable conclusion of the punch a Nazi thing from like 2017. Do you guys remember that? We always
that was the real violence. This man thinks it's fine to punch anyone he considers a Nazi. Please tell me again how that's not a slippery slope. Won't someone think of the Nazis? I saw that from so many fucking right-wingers too, where they're like, oh, the left doesn't condone violence. What about all this fucking punch a Nazi stuff? And I was like, you realize that the number one example that people were pulling up when it came to someone punching a Nazi was Richard fucking Spencer getting punched in the face. And then they were celebrating that. You can condone the violence that was taking place. You can condone randomly punching people on the street. You can do all that, but you can't say that these things are equivalent. You can't say if someone is like, eat the rich. Oh, that's a call to violence. That's a call to cannibalism. Right there, what you did. You said eat the rich. Yeah. That you're calling for people to literally grab a rich person and then start chewing on their flesh like a zombie. Yeah, this is a call to zombieism if ever I saw it. That's what the left is all about. You guys are extremist radicals. And it's like, this shit shouldn't be taken seriously by anyone, honestly. Again, the people who are in power, the billionaires, the corporations, the ones who have all of the fucking material resources on the planet, are they the ones that are really at risk on a daily basis of suffering in some way or another? Like, if you happen to be someone like Shue, who is doing all of this propaganda, she likes to give the whole thing a veneer of, I'm not on the right, by the way. I'm just saying that as a non-person on the right, I'm disgusted by what I'm seeing. I'm so fucking disgusted about it. Don't worry, I'm not on the right. But as a person who's not on the right, I can also speak out against this. It's fucked up. And it's mostly coming from women, by the way. All the women are the ones who are doing this.
I knew it was a slippery slope. And I see a lot of progressives in my audience like, Shue, you're not like Charlie Kirk. You're not a fascist. Here are all the things I have been called Nazi, fascist, reactionary for over the last few years. Would you like to see? I have been making this list since 2023. Let's go. Let's just read this together real quick. Mocking/criticizing pop feminism. Believing adults can do whatever they want. Being pro-free speech. Being liberal. Talking to people I disagree with. Being friends with people I disagree with. Following people on Twitter I disagree with. Supporting Bernie Sanders. That one came from the right. Being registered independent. Criticizing Joe Biden. Criticizing the Democratic Party. Not
Cool story. Do you know what the right have been doing for the past couple of years to every single person, just based on the way they were born? They've been calling them pedophiles and groomers. If you're gay, if you're trans, if you're LGBTQ plus in any way, if you're asexual, apparently you're a pedophile and a groomer. And just doing that over and over and over. Like, it got so intense that people like James Lindsay were calling fucking breakfast cereals groomer cereal because it had they, them on the side of the box. Pretty wild. And then people were showing up at events, LGBTQ plus events, with guns and shirts that say kill your local pedophile. All real things that happened. There was a mass shooting that took place at a club, Club Q, where 4 people were killed, 24 were injured, and afterwards right-wing pundits were like, oh my god, that's horrifying, I'm so sad that that happened. All of them were saying, well, that was a grooming event. Tim Pool's like, well, the people were asking for a wood chipper, what did you expect was going to happen? People were saying over and over and over, those were groomers and pedophiles. And in the midst of that, ShoeOnHead of all people, who identifies as bisexual, by the way, was putting out, hey, here's a bunch of pictures of what is supposed to be this, you know, adorable drag queen story hour, and here's a picture of an empty seat, and I'm thinking that this whole thing is actually just basically strippers who are trying to strip for children. This is a pedophile event, if ever I saw one, and then boom, Tucker Carlson starts reporting on it when he was back on Fox News, and then that becomes the narrative, that becomes the story. These are pedophile events, these are grooming events. She was also one of the people who was propagating that story that there was this teacher in Canada who was showing up to to school wearing enormous, I'm sure you remember Tucker Carlson speaking about this, enormous prosthetic breasts, because this person was identifying as someone who was trans. And because they were identifying as someone who was trans, they said that they couldn't be fired based on the fact that they were showing up to school wearing the massive, gigantic prosthetic vest. And then you had a person like Tucker Carlson who was doing, again, there was a pipeline where ShoeOnHead would tweet about it or talk about it, and then it would somehow just appear on the Tucker Carlson show. And he was like, gigantic milkers, milking mummy, the expansion milk fetish porn, and all this other weird shit. Turns out none of that was true. It turns out that person was not trans. It turns out that person was on the right and was doing it to try and bring attention negatively towards the trans community. It turns out that person was not dressing up like a woman with gigantic prosthetic breasts when their neighbors saw them at home. And it was their neighbors who reported on it like, yeah, that person's not trans. It's just a regular guy who got fired from his job and is now trying to actively bring all this attention to the trans community. And that narrative is not something that ShoeOnHead has ever corrected. She's never deleted those tweets. She's never come forward and been like, hey, by the way, I really want to tell everybody, it was really fucked up. It was fucked up for me to keep doing this thing where I try to pretend I'm doing a test. She always says, like, this should be like a litmus test. This should be like something where you're either gone way too far, you radical left are completely fine with apparently doing strip dancing for kids and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the people who are doing that are people on the right. Like Tucker Carlson is on the record while he was on Fox News saying that it's completely acceptable for a woman teacher, to give a strip dance for students. What's the problem? What's the problem here? Well, the pedophilia? I would say that's the problem with it. And also, I think the reason people were initially defending that story when there was the teacher who had the giant prosthetic breasts walking around in the classroom was because none of it seemed real. That's what I was constantly being like, rather than immediately be like, I'm going to condemn the trans community and I'm going to condemn trans women in totality because of the actions of, again, one person, it seems to me really suspicious. Something that is galvanizing a lot of right-wingers, making them super angry and getting them all really, really like heated over this issue because, of course, it's so easy to point towards and be like, that's not appropriate. Why do people think this is appropriate? You've lost your minds. But be like, but I don't think this is a trans person trying to enact trans fucking ideology like you're saying. This seems to be an isolated incident that all of you are saying is representative of an entire group, and that's simply not true. And why are we doing this unless you want to vilify trans people, unless you want to vilify LGBTQ plus people? That's the only reason why you would do this.
Not being attracted to feminine men, not hating men in general, criticizing Canada's MAID program, not taking the...
Okay, I'm gonna skip all that.
I know a lot of you can relate. I know a lot of you have been feeling the exact same way. So I will try and put it into words for you. I have friends who were friends with Charlie Kirk, but I didn't personally know him. We follow each other on Twitter. I've been to the TPUSA Amerifest in 2021. I actually went there planning to make a video making fun of it, but I had so much fun and met so many friends that I'm still friends with to this day. So that video never happened. I disagreed with him all the time. You can literally go to our Twitter interactions. I was always correcting him about, like...
Let's see. I want to see you ripping into Charlie Kirk. Republicans should not support a bill that pays people not to work. Have you seen the current unemployment in this country, Charles? This is not ripping into him. This is a slight disagreement, but sure. The modern cultural warfare the left is engaged in right now has done more damage to America in 40 years than the conservative boogeyman of socialism has ever done in the lifetime of our nation. Time to rethink our priorities and calculate a proportional response. We'd love to see growth, Charles. If capitalism is so great, why haven't they made capitalism too? You're memeing with him. This is what I would do with a friend I disagreed with. Not me being like, I fundamentally disagree and I think your rhetoric is dangerous. But sure.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders just announced his top priorities for president will be reinstating DACA, immigration reform, meaning open borders, abolishing ICE and amnesty, protection and healthcare for 11 million illegal aliens. Why are illegal aliens his top priority instead of Americans? And you disagreed and said he's not for open borders, Charlie. Really taking it to him. It's undeniable. Yeah, you certainly had his number.
I made an egg look like his face. It is safe to say I was no fan. But this has really shaken me in a way that I absolutely did not expect. These last few days after what happened, I kept going to every single, like, lefty, liberal, left-wing person I know and, like, checking out what they have been saying about this. And besides maybe, like, 4 or 5, every single one was being an unhinged psychopath about this. Or saying...
But again, this is just based on vibes. This whole video is based on vibes. And a video based on vibes on a really serious topic in which right now actively there are right-wingers who are outwardly saying that they're going to target trans people because of what had happened, even though trans people are not responsible, is kind of gross and fucked up. Because, like, what's your evidence here? I first off, I'm going to say that if you think Charlie Kirk was an extremist, he was taken out of context. I'm not going to show you the context, but I'm going to say, you're wrong. Here's my proof. Article by InfoWars. And then you're like, okay. And now I'm going to show you a whole bunch of people being really unhinged and laughing and mocking his death. It's going to take up a lot of time in the video. Like, how much of the video spent with your compilation clips of all these TikTokers who I'm sure are having great lives now? 5 minutes all the way to 7 minutes, 8 minutes. So almost 3 minutes of the video is just the compilation of all these TikTokers. All right. But again, this is not evidence, just you doing a highlight reel to make people very angry, very, very mad. Who couldn't watch this video that almost has 2 million views and seeing this highlight reel and not walk away like, holy fuck, I can't believe it. She was right. They want to kill us. They mock Charlie Kirk. They are against us. And then coming to this point and being like, I got to be honest with all of you. I, after this happened, was shook. It really affected me. And so I personally went onto a whole bunch of different accounts, of leftists and liberals, and outside of maybe 4 or 5 of them, the overwhelming majority of them were unhinged, and it's disgraceful. And you're like, is there going to be evidence presented towards that? No. We just got to take her word for it. Okay. Because I saw liberal politicians internationally, I might add, here in Canada, I saw them in the UK, I saw them everywhere. The premier of Manitoba, who has no business commenting on a far-right political commentator YouTuber in America, ended up posting a video on it. Like, it's pretty wild. Every single one of them was condemning the shooting. Every single one. US politicians, Democratic politicians, every single one of them was condemning the shooting. Liberal pundits, almost overwhelmingly, were condemning the shooting. I'd say the exception were people who were trying to say, by the way, while I do not agree with the violence that took place, I also don't agree that we should be somehow trying to do revisionist history on Charlie Kirk's image. And if that's considered unhinged, whereas like the biggest names on the left, everyone from like Mehdi Hassan to the Majority Report, you know, the ones who actually have really big channels, or even Hassan Piker, they were not saying and making jokes about how glorious it was that he was shot. They were saying both, yes, this was a horrifying act of political violence that should be condemned, and also that we should not be rehabilitating this man's image because his image should speak for itself. His own words should speak for themselves. And immediately people started getting fired for saying words like on MSNBC, he was divisive. That was enough for someone to get fired. There was a black woman who was working for a newspaper who got fired for posting Charlie Kirk quotes. Like, again, these are not extremist versions of what you're trying to demonstrate here, but as long as you just leave that out there, as long as you just say, hey, by the way, just people were really fucked up.
Some backhanded shit like, this is why we need gun control, which, first of all, we were just watching a whole bunch of people celebrate killing someone over political differences. You are never taking our guns now. That is not happening. I felt like...
What's unhinged about that? What's unhinged? During Charlie Kirk's own funeral that just aired on television, everyone had to give their speeches behind bulletproof glass. Isn't that kind of fucked up? That all of the pro-gun types, all the ones who are talking about how they're pro-Second Amendment, have to deliver those messages now behind multiple inches of bulletproof glass because they're worried about being shot? Is this honestly the world that anyone wants to live in? I'm so pro-guns that I have to tell my pro-gun message behind fucking inches of bulletproof glass to make sure I'm not shot.
I was in the middle of the ocean. I was trying to like grasp onto a flotation device, checking all of these accounts for their take, like, be normal, be normal. Nothing. Nobody. I'm just drowning in a sea of evil, apparently.
That's cool. But again, this is your own personal experience that is now going to be replicated to everyone who watches your video as a universal experience, which is why I say This is far-right propaganda. It's fascism in head. Like, she's doing this thing where she's immediately trying to say, this is all of them, the other group. They are the enemy, and they're being unhinged, and they're making fun of Charlie Kirk, our savior. And so we, and again, I'm going to use we, she's used we multiple times, are on the other side of this. Doesn't matter what my politics were before, we have to unite against this kind of stuff because they are trying to destroy us. Good versus evil, us versus them. Reinforcing that dynamic to the extreme here. And yeah, I'm not surprised that on your algorithm, on your far-right algorithm, again, there's lots of people who are telling you these things and making you feel artificially that this is the way the entire world works.
It's over. But some of these people in particular, like, why the f*** are you celebrating? You! They think you're a f***ing Nazi too. They'll make a nice compilation of all the hot takes you've had over the years and spread it around to justify your murder. You don't get it, do you? We are all Charlie Kirk. I have been doing this for 11 years. I have been harassed, doxed, threatened, whatever, you name it, for 11 years by the left. And it hasn't moved me an inch because that's not how politics works. That's lunch table politics. I've talked about this before. People on your side being mean to you doesn't mean you overnight change your opinions on, like, healthcare. It doesn't work that way. I still have all my economic left opinions. I'm for strong social safety nets, workers' rights, unions, wealth caps, whatever. That has not changed. This is not me leaving the left because, frankly, I don't even know how to do that. This is me and many, many people looking around us at our so-called allies and realizing that even though we might share some, like, political opinions, we fundamentally do not have the same values or morals. And
you've always been socially conservative, though. People are complex. This is the wild thing. This is not a new thing, by the way. The Shoe on Head, Why I Left the Left, I Am Charlie Kirk video, which is a wild thing to say because, again, Charlie Kirk was not for any of those social fucking policies that you were talking... Sorry, economic policies that you were talking about. That was not Charlie Kirk. But sure, you're now Charlie Kirk, as is every other right-winger and every other fucking extremist who wants to talk about this kind of stuff. But, hey, if you're simply worried about that kind of stuff... Your social policies and things you've advocated for have been the things that people on the left, and especially people in marginalized communities, specifically the LGBTQ plus community, have constantly pointed out. You are doing things that are vilifying the very people that you pretend, at least outwardly, to want to try and care about, or protect, or advocate on the behalf of. If you're putting stuff out there that is directly going to get people who are LGBTQ plus attacked, beat up, and killed, by the way, if you're saying, hey, by the way, the left has a problem, as someone who's on the left, I gotta tell you all this, it's true, there is Drag Queen Story Hour, no one will talk about this, oh my god, look at the photos I'm putting out there, aren't these photos scary? Look, there's an empty chair, that means that there was probably lap dances happening to kids, I'm putting it out there, I'm just saying that this is really fucked up, and as someone on that side, I want everyone to know, well, guess what? People did get killed. There were people who took up guns and did violence and murdered people. There were people who were violently beating up trans people, gay people, LGBTQ plus people because they thought they were groomers, because they thought they were pedophiles. They were wearing shirts that said, kill your local pedophile. They were showing up to events where people were reading stories to kids and they were trying to enact violence against them. There was an ally, someone who wasn't even LGBTQ plus, who got shot and killed because they had a pride flag outside of their store. That was real violence that was happening every single day because of the shit that you were putting out there. And now that a rich podcaster who had very far-right beliefs was killed, you are suddenly Charlie Kirk. You just said that out loud. So it's really telling. This is just really effective propaganda and always has been. You can sit on one side of the aisle. It's like, she's the female Tim Pool. That's exactly what she is. She's someone who doesn't outwardly want to be like, I have very far right and very social conservative beliefs when it comes to the way that we should treat women, when it comes to the way that we should treat what are considered to be protected minorities or groups that shouldn't have hate-like speech enacted upon them, when it comes to how we should treat LGBTQ plus people. My beliefs for that group is very on the right, to the far right. And I know it's strange because I also identify as someone who's bisexual, but I'm going to put that out there. This is where my beliefs stand, but I'm also not on the right. I'm very, very on the left when it comes to all of my policies, when it comes to things like the economy, when it comes to things like unions, worker rights, all that kind of stuff. And I can both be super pro-guns, but also kind of anti-state authority. See that? There's different views and beliefs going on here. But it's like, if the videos that you put out there are being used by the far right to justify their violence towards those marginalized communities, then I'm sorry, you don't get to keep being a Tim Pool-style milquetoast fence sitter. You don't get to keep playing the I support Bernie Sanders, but at the same time, I think the gays are degenerate. I support Bernie Sanders, but at the same time, why won't the left talk about the Wayfair cabinets? Why won't the left talk about all of this fucking shit that is going down where I can find secret coded messages in these printouts that are being done by Balenciaga? Isn't that weird? Why won't the left talk about that? Why won't the left talk about the drag queen story hour and all these photos that I see here where it looks like they're doing lap dances for children? Why won't the left talk about that? Oh, it's weird that keeps popping up in other sections of the right almost exclusively. Andy No, Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Tucker Carlson, all of them, Matt Walsh, they're all the ones propagating that. But I, as a leftist, happen to be the person bringing this towards you. What a surprise. At least this time she's not Canadian.
Are we really allies if we agree on, like, taxes, but don't agree on the sanctity of human life? I don't know. The way we view death now is just crazy. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the desensitization, in part thanks to the internet. You used to have to go out of your way to see gore and stuff like that, and now you're just scrolling through Twitter and you see someone set on fire if someone gets stabbed on a train. And when someone
Yeah, I've had to watch for 2 years the policies of the United States under both the Democrats and the Republicans result in the mass death of children. Palestinians in Gaza, I see it every fucking day. I see the mass murder of kids. I see their bodies being destroyed in the most horrifying of ways, stuff that'll haunt me forever. And that has to do with, again, the U.S. military-industrial complex, the militarism of the United States, and the policies, the genocidal policies of Israel. 0 videos you've done on that topic. And you're going to talk about the sanctity of life and how, oh, wow, the other side doesn't respect life. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is one of the fucking people who's pushing for that on a daily fucking basis. And before him, yeah, it was Joe Biden. Seems like if you want to play this whole, it's Democrats and Republicans, that's one thing in which they are completely and totally aligned on. Zionism. On the, again, forcible destruction and extermination of Palestinians. But crickets. Radio silence. That one doesn't really fit the narrative. So, yeah. If you want to say that you are Charlie Kirk and you've been radicalized by this moment and that you are effectively now going to be pushing or advocating or even trying to, rehabilitate the man's image, consider me not shocked in the very fucking slightest. It's none of this is new. To anyone who's been paying attention for a long time, this has basically been what ShoeOnHead does. And again, that's why people like ShoeOnHead, Tim Pool, etc., all the people who pretend not to be on the right, but they say, oh, no, I happen to be on the left on these issues. Like Tim Pool likes to say, well, I actually have a lot of leftist beliefs in the sense that, like, I'm pro, I am for abortion, but people on the right are not for abortion. It's like, what are you for? Well, I'm for women having the right to choose within certain terms and conditions. Granted, you do have to acknowledge that the vast majority of women who are getting abortions are doing it within the 9-month span because at the end of the day, they are using the baby guillotines, and this is why it's really fucked up, and we need to talk about that. And it's like, all you're saying out loud right now is stuff that's going to benefit the right. This is not you pushing back. This is not even a cause for any of them, by the way. It's not a cause for Tim Pool, just like LGBTQ plus rights are not a cause for ShoeOnHead. She can put out all this stuff that actually endangers people who are LGBTQ plus, and at the same time be like, oh, well, yeah, but you know what? I support Bernie Sanders, and that's where I stand. Again, almost 2 million views, by the way. 229,000 likes. Looks like the propaganda is being extremely effective.
Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault.
A chilling hour of testimony where David DePape took the stand, showing little remorse for the attack on Paul Pelosi.
Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly?
He told the jury he would spend his off time sitting in the garage where he lived, playing video games, watching YouTube, and listening to right-wing podcasts.
Why are we to blame for that exactly?
First off, thank you so much to our patrons for making this show possible. We could not fund it without you. And if you want to join, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus episodes, uncensored content, and all the good stuff. Thanks to Anna Loves Riley, Addercap, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hegbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet One 85, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Tigwick, and Words Greenwood.